Ahoy folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So today we're going to be taking a look at a Zealot build, and as you can see, it's knife time. So, let's jump straight in, shall we? So, unlike the last knife build that I made, this one is all about being sneaky. So, of course, this is how we're going to be using the equipment. Perk-wise, we've gone for crit and infested enemies, but you can pretty much put whatever you want on here. Flak Maniac or Unyielding Carapace. It's totally up to you. I like crit, and infested was already on there, but if you really want to, my choice would be Flak Maniac. It would be the most useful in all situations. And also, if you need a dump stat on the knives, mobility. Mobility is always your dump stat of these. Everything else you want to be as high as you can. Mobility, get rid of it. Right, so our secondary weapon. This is where you have quite a lot of choice. You can pretty much pick whatever you want. I really like the Zorona Mark II Quick Draw Stub Revolver because hand cannon and surgical just work really well with this build. It allows you to snipe anything, and you'll pretty much be one-shotting or double tapping at most to kill enemies with this. But if you want to use something else, there's a few other things you can use. You can use the heavy las pistol with Dum Dum and Infernus, or the Cantrell, the same, Infernus and Dum Dum. The Shredder auto pistol is still a good choice with Pinning Fire and Inspiring Barrage. Or if you want to use something that's just come out, you can use the Iron Helm Hacker Assault Shotgun. Now, what you want on this, if you want to use the Iron Helm, is Maniac and Flak with Scattershot Tier 4 and Manstopper at Tier 2. So Manstopper can only be found as a Tier 2 blessing. But with this combination, you can clear out entire hordes of Ragers without any problem. You just brace the shotgun, and as they're coming towards you, you let rip. So, it's a nice little thing to play with. Also, you can fire it singularly with the left click. It does less damage, but hold right down and you fire both barrels. It gets better as you get going, obviously. Right, so back to the gear. And for curios, I'm using 2 health curios, which are exactly the same: toughness, regeneration speed, and damage resistant gunners. And 1 toughness curio with toughness, regeneration, and damage resistance gunners. I wouldn't use 3 health curios because the diminishing returns on extra health gets really bad after this point. It's just not worth your time. So this is what I would use. Right, that's the gear. Let's look at the talents. So here's what we're going with. We'll start in the middle. Sorry, I've been live streaming all night. My voice is going. We're going with Anointed in Blood, up to 25% base range damage, reduced the further you are from the target. This is especially good for the hacker, as you're going to be right up close, unloading both barrels. And then Purge the Unclean, which gives you plus 20% damage increased against infested and unyielding enemies. This is both melee and ranged, even though it doesn't specify here. Then over on the right, we're going to be growing Backstabber for 20% damage on melee backstab hits. Scourge, melee critical hits apply bleed, causing damage over 10 seconds. Melee hits on bleeding enemies grant more crit. Stacks 3 times, so you should be running with 30% critical chance when this starts rolling. We're grabbing Second Wind, replenish 15% toughness on a successful dodge. And Enduring Faith, 50% toughness damage reduction on critical hit for 4 seconds. As you can see, this is a very crit-centric build. We're taking up Blades of Faith. It's a very good little usable ability here. You can snipe stuff with it. I would have liked to have taken a grenade, but can't really fit it in with this build. And then we're going to go over here onto the left. We're going to grab Duelist, 50% weak spot and critical hit damage for 3 seconds on successful dodge. And until death, fatal damage instead grants you invulnerability for 5 seconds. Can only occur every 2 minutes. This is just to help keep us alive. And then we're going to come back here to the right and we're going to grab Dance of Death. Spread and recoil on successful dodge. This doesn't really matter to us. Though Wrath be swift, enemy melee attacks cannot stun you. On taking damage, gain 15% movement speed for 2 seconds. This is just going to keep us rolling. Good balance, successful dodge grants 25% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. This is a very, very fast build. You're going to be moving at all times, dodging all the time if you can. Then Ambuscade, 20% damage to ranged backstab attacks. Point the shotgun in their back, do more damage. And also it stacks alongside Anointed in Blood. So shooting something in the back, you're doing 45% increased damage. And then we're taking Loner. You always count as being in at least 2 coherency. And then we're grabbing Shroudfield. Enter stealth for 3 seconds. While in stealth, gain 20% movement speed, 100% backstab damage, 100% finesse damage, and 100% critical chance. Finesse damage is crit damage, basically. So we're going to be popping in and out of stealth to lay down heavy, heavy damage on whatever the hell is in front of us. We're going to take Mastercrafted Shroudfield. Stealth duration is increased to 6 seconds. This is going to help with getting into position, picking up downed teammates, clutching anything really. This is just going to really help. And then Invigorating Revelation. Replenish 40% toughness over 5 seconds on leaving stealth. Also gain 20% damage reduction for 5 seconds. This is just going to give us that little bit extra to hopefully help out as we jump out and do what we need to do. Then we're going to be grabbing Sustained Assault, 4% melee damage for 5 seconds on hitting an enemy with a melee attack. Stacks 5 times. This is just nice damage buff. And it stacks along with everything else we've got going. And then we're going to be grabbing Pious Cutthroat. Backstab kills restore 20% ability cooldown. It's going to allow us to Shroudfield a lot more often. And then we're going to be grabbing Inexorable Judgment. Moving grants you momentum, stacks 15 times. When you hit an enemy, spend all momentum, gaining 1% melee attack speed, 1% ranged attack speed, and 1% damage per stack. Lasts 6 seconds. And you'll have 15 stacks of this, so that's 15% to all of those. Retributor Stance, replenish 2% toughness for each spent stack of momentum. And Inebriate's Poise, gain 3 stacks of momentum on a successful dodge. And this is why the build is also dubbed the Drunken Monk, or the Way of the Drunken Fist. It's a very old samurai film thing. It makes me laugh, don't worry, you don't have to. But yeah, so this build, it's basically the exact opposite of the Bruiser build, which was the other knife build I put up a while back for the Zealot. So with this, you want to be aiming for weak spots, whereas in the Bruiser build, you aim for anything but. With this, you are aiming for only weak spots. So, obviously, Shroud up. Miss your first attack like that because, you know, I'm awesome. Heavy attacks. And you just look for those weak spots. Even though, technically, that is the weak spot for the Crusher. You can also aim between the shoulder blades. That counts most of the time. and you just do some really insane damage. If you can, you want to try heavy attacking most of the time when you're doing this to really land that damage. But if you have to, you can light attack and just aim high and try and just aim at the face. It's quite simple. It just requires a little bit of practice to be able to get those hits in where you need to. And especially while things are moving around, it can be a little bit difficult. But don't forget, you will be dodging at all times, so if you miss an attack, just dodge out of the way. Just to give yourself some space. And if you have to, if you miss an attack, say, go for the face. Say if you're going for the face, sorry. And you miss your attack, dodge back. Throw your knife into them. It's like, oh no, I've missed again. You definitely want to be using the daggers. You want to be using them aggressively. You don't want to be holding them going, oh, okay, well, there's not much going on, let's just play with the daggers and like throw them at things. You want to be weaving these throwing daggers into your actual rotation while you're playing. And see them as sort of a safety net. Or an extra attack that you can use if anything goes wrong. Which things will, you know. Doesn't matter how good you are at playing. Attacks go wrong. Things turn up that you're not expecting. And you can also use them to snipe out specials. Because, as you can see, they do some quite impressive damage against them. And as you pick up ammo, it also refreshes the knives. This is the build I actually used to beat the Karnak twins on hard mode. It was very good for dealing with crushers and all sorts of other horrible gribblies.
Inquisitor comes snooping. No trust among them. No. It's very sad.
As you can see, probably wouldn't waste them against Ogryns. But there you have it. That is the build. It takes a little bit more getting used to than the Brawler Bruiser build that I put out. But once you start getting along with it, you'll find there is a lot of utility in this build and a lot more leeway in messing up. So, for example, you've gone in for a big attack, it's not gone down. Just, you're incredibly fast. You either sprint, dodge away, or you just shroud up and say hello to them with your shotgun. So there you have it, folks. I really do hope you enjoy it. This is one of my favourite builds. I really love this, and I hope you do too. And if you do, consider dropping us a like, maybe sub. Helps us out. It's really good for the channel, and we really would appreciate it, guys, if you could. So until the next one, please enjoy the build and take it easy, and I shall see you later. Right. Later, folks.